The council chamber floated above the golden clouds of Zitharon Prime, a vast hall made of shining metal and glowing light, where 20 alien leaders gathered in silence, their eyes fixed on a single hologram hovering in the air. It was a message sent from the blue planet once called Earth. The voice was calm, human, and confident. "This is not a plea for peace," it said. "This is a warning." For a moment no one spoke. The words echoed in the chamber like thunder. Admiral Kale, the oldest member of the council, let out a sharp laugh, his scaled lips curling with arrogance. "A warning from Earth. The same humans we crushed 2 centuries ago," he said, his voice dripping with mockery. But deep inside, something unsettled him. Humans had been silent for generations, their homeworld scarred, their colonies destroyed. They were supposed to be extinct or broken, yet now their voice had returned. Steady and strong, the hologram flickered again, and the human voice continued, "We will not bow again, we will not be forgotten. And when the stars grow dark, remember this message. Humanity endures." The signal ended. Leaving only static, Kale turned to his advisors. "Prepare the fleets," he ordered. "If they think they can threaten us again, we will erase Earth completely this time." Far away, on the edges of the Council's borders, deep space patrols began to pick up strange readings, massive energy signatures moving through uncharted zones. The reports came in quietly at first, and Kale ignored them, calling them sensor ghosts. But the signals kept coming, entire stations reporting power surges, communication blackouts, then silence. In the quiet corridors of the Council's command center, a young technician named Lyra noticed something odd in the transmission logs. She zoomed in on the human message again and found faint distortions hidden in the background noise. It wasn't just a voice recording, it was a code, encrypted, complex and old. She tried to decode it, her fingers trembling, and what she found froze her blood. The message contained coordinates, not random, but precise, each one pointing to a different council outpost before she could warn anyone. Her screen flickered and then went black. A whisper came through her headset, soft and human. "We see you, back in the council chamber." Kyle received word that one of their outer colonies had gone dark. No communication, no survivors. He slammed his clawed fist on the table. "Send a fleet!" he roared. "I want answers now!" The fleet was dispatched. 300 warships armed with the latest plasma cannons and shield drives. They entered the dark sector near the edge of known space, where the stars grew thin and the void swallowed all light. Minutes turned into hours, then hours into silence. No ship returned. In the control room, Lyra watched the readings fade one by one, her heart pounding. "What's happening?" someone whispered. She looked up at the holographic display. One by one, the signals of the fleet vanished. Replaced by static and a faint pulse, the pulse formed a shape, a pattern she had seen before, the emblem of Earth. A single blue circle with a white star in its center. The council panicked. Kale shouted orders, his voice shaking for the first time in decades. "How is this possible?" "They had nothing left," he shouted. But deep inside, even he knew humans were different. They had always been different. They learned faster, built faster, and fought harder than any other species. When they were pushed, they adapted. And when they adapted, they became unstoppable. Far from the council's sight, in the dark reaches of space, the human fleet moved like shadows, their ships silent and sleek, painted black as the void itself. Inside the command ship Vigilant, Commander Rhea Morgan stood before the viewport, her eyes locked on the distant stars. She was calm, but her voice carried steel. "The council thought we were finished," she said. "But we were only waiting." Her officers listened in silence as she continued. "For every city they burned, for every colony they destroyed, we remember today. They will remember us." She gave the order. "Activate the signal across the galaxy." Every council communication channel suddenly burst to life. Screens flickering, alarms ringing. The same message appeared again. But this time it was different. The voice was deeper, colder. "This is humanity," it said. "You tried to crush us. Now we will show you what survives when everything else dies." Kale stared at the words flashing across his command console, his scales trembling. Outside the chamber, the stars began to shift. sensors screaming as unknown objects appeared on the edge of their systems. Thousands of them, the Council had declared war on humanity. But they were not ready for what came next. As Kyle looked out from the Council Tower at the burning skies, a single thought crossed his mind. They had awakened something ancient, something relentless, and it was coming for them. The Council's war room was chaos, alarms flashing red across the towering chamber. Alien commanders shouting over one another, demanding answers, but no one had any. 3 fleets had vanished in the outer sectors, leaving only fragments of broken transmissions. Static and terrified screams. Admiral Kyle stood in the center of the storm, his claws gripping the railing so tightly that cracks spread through the metal. "Find them," he growled, his voice low and heavy with rage. "Find out what destroyed my fleets, Lyra." The young technician had not slept in 2 days. She sifted through the data fragments recovered from the missing fleets, frame by frame, second by second at first. It was all noise until she found it. A single recording from the flagship Nerith. Caught moments before it was destroyed, she played it for the Council. The projection came alive with the image of a dark void filled with strange lights. The lights moved fast, too fast for any known drive. Then came the sound, a sharp rhythmic pulse. Like a heartbeat echoing through space, the alien officers leaned closer. And then the image shifted, showing massive, dark shapes emerging from the shadows. Their hulls black as night. No visible engines, no energy readings. Then one of the ships turned, and on its side appeared a white insignia, a circle and a star. The mark of Earth. Gasps filled the chamber. Kyle's jaw tightened. "Impossible," he whispered. They were extinct, but extinction had never been humanity's way. Lyra looked at the data again, her voice trembling. "They call themselves the Shadow Fleet, sir," she said. "And they are attacking systematically. Outpost by outpost, the Council immediately sent more fleets, larger, stronger, faster, but one by one. They too vanished each time the same faint message followed, carried on the old human frequency. This is vengeance." Across the galaxy, panic began to spread. Worlds that had once worshipped the Council now questioned their strength. Rebel whispers stirred among the oppressed colonies. If humanity could stand against the Council, maybe they could too. Meanwhile, in the hidden base deep within the Orion Rift, Commander Rhea Morgan stood before her fleet, the dim light glinting off the metallic plates of her uniform. Thousands of ships floated silently around her. Human warships reborn from the ashes of old Earth. Each one carried names of the fallen, carved into their hulls. New Hope, Unity, Fallen Dawn, Arc 9. Her voice was calm, but it carried through every channel. "For 200 years they enslaved us, hunted us, erased our name from history," she said. "But humans do not vanish, we adapt, we rebuild, and we strike back." Her second-in-command, Lieutenant Vega, asked quietly, "Commander, will they ever see us as equals?" Rhea looked through the viewport, where the shattered remains of a Council outpost drifted like ashes. "No," she said softly, "and that's why we'll make them fear us first." The Shadow Fleet began its second wave. They targeted communication hubs, weapon factories, and transport gates, crippling the Council's ability to move or coordinate. The attacks came without warning, without mercy, in one night. 10 Council systems fell into darkness. Admiral Kyle sat alone in his private chamber, watching the reports pour in. Every failure was another wound to his pride, another crack in his empire. He could not understand how humans had achieved this level of technology. The last time they had fought, humanity was centuries behind. Now, they wielded power that defied logic. He summoned the Council's scientific director, a tall insectoid creature named Scythar. "How did they do it?" Kyle demanded. "Tell me how a dead race builds ships that move through shadows." Scythar's antennae twitched nervously. "We believe they discovered a way to manipulate gravity itself," he said. "Their ships bend light and energy around them. They can appear anywhere, vanish anywhere, strike without warning." Kyle's eyes narrowed. "Then we will find a way to stop them." But even as he spoke, more reports came in. A massive explosion had torn through the central fleet yard on Velkar Prime. Humanity had struck at the heart of the Council's power. The entire facility was gone, reduced to glowing debris, and in its place, A message appeared on every council screen. "This is for New London." Kale's anger turned into something else. Fear. He could hear the whispers spreading among his officers. They were afraid, not of losing, but of what was coming. Humanity had become a ghost story, a living nightmare, and every alien in the galaxy could feel their presence growing stronger. Back aboard the human command ship, Vigilant, Rhea received confirmation of the successful strike. Her crew cheered quietly, but she did not smile. "This is only the beginning," she said. "They haven't learned yet what it means to take everything from us." She turned to Vega. "Prepare phase 2, he nodded. "Yes, Commander, in the dark of space." The shadow fleet spread like a storm, silent and unstoppable. Each attack left echoes, signals of vengeance that filled the void with human defiance. Across the stars, the Council watched their empire begin to crumble. System by system, planet by planet, and yet, no one knew where the humans truly came from. Their bases were hidden, their technology impossible to trace. To the Council, it felt as if the void itself had turned against them. Lyra, working deep within the Council's intelligence division, stared at the data in disbelief. Everywhere she looked, she saw the same pattern. The humans were not just fighting. They were sending a message. Each strike formed a line, and those lines connected into a shape, a symbol, the same blue circle and white star that haunted her dreams. She realized it wasn't random destruction, it was a map. A path leading toward the heart of the Council's empire, towards Zitheron Prime. Humanity wasn't just fighting for revenge, they were coming home. The galaxy trembled under whispers of the unseen fleet. No one had ever witnessed an enemy like this. No warnings, no broadcasts, only silence before the storm. Outposts vanished, fleets disappeared, and the Council's proud empire began to crumble from within. They called them the Shadow Fleet, born from the ashes of old Earth. Forged in secrecy, driven by vengeance and unity, every soldier aboard those ships carried a story of loss. A family taken, a city destroyed, a planet erased. Commander Rhea Morgan stood at the center of the human command deck. Her uniform dark and worn, her eyes sharp and steady. The Vigilance control room hummed with quiet energy as officers moved like clockwork. Before her, the galaxy's holographic map glowed. Hundreds of red lights representing the Council's strongholds, and each one was slowly turning dark. Lieutenant Vega approached. "Commander, Phase 2 is ready," he said. "The fleet is in position." Rhea nodded, her voice calm but cold. "Then we move." The Shadow Fleet emerged from hyperspace without a sound. Black ships gliding through the void like predators, their hulls absorbing light, leaving behind nothing but shadows. They attacked from every direction, using gravity slings and cloaked drives that twisted reality around them. Council defenses fired blindly, hitting nothing but empty space. Inside one of the Council's defense stations, panic erupted. "Where are they?" "Sensors show nothing," cried a panicked officer moments later. The entire station shook as invisible weapons tore through its shields. Through the smoke and fire, a single transmission appeared on every screen. The symbol of Earth, glowing white against black. The Council's response was chaos. Admiral Kale demanded unity among the alien races, summoning leaders from across the stars. In the great chamber of Zitheron Prime, voices clashed like thunder. "The humans are demons," shouted one. "They're ghosts," cried another. Kale slammed his fist on the table. Silencing them, "They are neither gods nor ghosts," he said. "They are a mistake we should have finished long ago." But deep down, Kyle feared the truth. He remembered the old stories, how humanity refused to surrender even when their skies burned, how they built ships out of ruins and weapons out of desperation. They were creatures of survival, forged by war, tempered by loss. Back aboard the Vigilant, Rhea walked among her crew, the faint hum of the engines echoing like a heartbeat. She paused beside a window, watching a dying sun flicker in the distance. "Do you think they'll ever understand?" Vega asked quietly, standing beside her. Rhea shook her head slowly. "No, they never do," she replied. "But they'll feel what we felt. That's enough." Her words hung heavy in the silence. A transmission alert blinked on her console. A message from the recon ship Echo 9, one of their scouts near the Council's central armada. They had located the enemy's greatest fleet. Thousands of warships surrounding the twin suns of Velkar Prime, preparing for a final defense. Rhea smiled faintly. Then it's time, she said. Time to end their illusion of power. The Shadow Fleet began to gather. Hundreds of ships aligning in precise formation. No one spoke. No one cheered. They all knew what was coming, not victory but reckoning. Meanwhile, inside the Council's grand military fortress, Kyle stood before his generals. Our enemies hide in darkness, he said, so we will drag them into the light. He activated a holographic projection, showing the twin suns of Velkar Prime. We'll lure them here and crush them under our combined might. The generals nodded, their faces pale but far across the galaxy. Rhea had already anticipated his plan. She had studied Kyle, his pride, his obsession with control, and she was about to use it against him. Deploy the Spectres, Rhea ordered, a squadron of small, stealth-capable drones detached from the human fleet, vanishing into the void. They began transmitting false readings, fake signatures that mimicked human warships, pulling Kale's fleets away from their real target. Hours later, the Council fleets found themselves chasing ghosts, thousands of ships firing into empty space. While the real Shadow Fleet slipped unnoticed toward Velkar Prime, Lyra, still working in the Council's intelligence division, saw the data patterns forming. She gasped, realizing the trap too late. They're not attacking our borders, she whispered. They're coming for the core. By the time her warning reached Kyle, it was already over. Humanity's fleet had arrived, their ships emerging from the darkness like silent titans. Kyle stared in disbelief. How did they get past our sensors? He muttered. His aide replied weakly. They didn't. Sorry, they never left. Before Kale could react, a voice filled every communication channel across the system. This is Commander Rhea Morgan of Earth, it said. Steady and cold, for centuries you ruled through fear. Now you will learn what fear truly is. The Council's fleets opened fire, filling the void with plasma bolts and energy beams, but the human ships moved like shadows, bending light, slipping between dimensions. Their counterattack came swift and merciless, silent explosions lighting up the stars like dying suns. Kyle watched in horror as his fleet numbers dropped faster than he could count. He turned to his officers. Retreat! He screamed, but retreat was impossible. Space itself had turned against them, back on the vigilant. Rhea watched the destruction unfold, her expression unreadable. Vega turned to her. They're breaking. Commander, he said. She nodded slowly. Not yet, she whispered. Not until they understand. She activated the fleet-wide channel, broadcasting across every frequency. Her voice echoed through the stars, calm and heavy with finality. You called us savages, weak, lesser beings, she said. But we are what you made us, the sum of every fire you started, every world you burned, as her words echoed. The human fleet unleashed its final maneuver, the collapse, a weapon that bent gravity itself, tearing through the Council's ships like paper. Velkar Prime's twin suns flickered, their light dimming as the system's energy fields collapsed. When the light returned, nothing remained of the Council's armada but drifting debris. The galaxy fell silent once more, far away, on Zitharon Prime. Kyle watched the transmissions end. His empire's pride had been shattered in a single night. He sank to his knees, whispering to himself, "What have we done?" Rhea turned from the burning stars, her reflection faint in the viewport. They thought we were gone, she said quietly, but the shadows remember. The Shadow Fleet disappeared once more into the void, leaving behind only silence, only echoes of vengeance. The twin suns of Velkar Prime burned like dying embers across the battlefield. Where once the proud fleets of the Galactic Council had stood in gleaming formation, now only wreckage drifted through the void, silent and broken. Thousands of ships, millions of lives, gone, erased in a storm of fire and gravity. Admiral Kyle stood before the cracked glass of his command deck, his reflection trembling under the dim red lights. He had spent centuries building the Council's power, conquering worlds, enslaving species, crushing rebellions. But now, all that power had turned to ash. The humans had done what no empire ever dared. They had brought the Council to its knees. Behind him, his officers whispered in fear. Their voices low. They move like ghosts, one said. We can't track them. We can't stop them. Kale turned, his eyes burning. Then we die standing, he snarled. We will not beg. We are the Council. But even as he spoke, another explosion shook the command deck, the walls trembling as emergency sirens wailed. Kale looked out again, his fleet falling apart, his empire crumbling piece by piece. He could not understand how humanity had come so far. Our race, once enslaved, once broken, had risen to such power on the other side of the war. Deep within the human flagship, vigilant, Commander Rhea Morgan watched the fading battle through the holographic display. Her face was calm, but her eyes carried sorrow, not pride. End their resistance, she ordered quietly. Her voice was steady, but in her heart, she felt the weight of every life taken, every fire started. Do it swiftly, she added. No more suffering than they gave us. The fleet responded as one. The Vigilance cannons roared with a blinding flash, followed by a wave of energy that tore through the last of the Council's defenses. Kale's flagship shuddered, the deck collapsing beneath him, alarms screaming. He struggled to his feet, coughing, gripping the control console. Is this how it ends? He muttered, his voice weak, his second in command. A reptilian officer named Threx fell beside him, his scales scorched. They're not just destroying us, Threx whispered. They're unmaking the Empire. Kyle looked at him, his mind burning with confusion. They were supposed to die, he said softly. They were supposed to die. Back on the Vigilant, Rhea stood in silence as the last enemy ship was reduced to debris. The stars beyond flickered faintly through the dust. Like tears in the dark, Lieutenant Vega turned to her. The Council fleet is gone, Commander, he said. Velkar Prime is defenseless. Rhea's expression did not change. Then we move on to Zitharon, she said. To end this war once and for all, her fleet began to reform. Hundreds of ships turning in unison, their engines glowing faint blue. The shadow of humanity spread like a tide, pushing toward the heart of the Council's empire. Meanwhile, on Zitharon Prime, panic reigned. The once proud capital of the galaxy, a world of towers, shining skies, and endless wealth, now trembled under the news of defeat. Council members screamed in the great chamber, demanding safety, demanding lies. The humans won't dare come here, shouted one. They can't, cried another. But in their hearts, they already knew humanity had become unstoppable. Lyra, the young technician who had discovered the human code, stood in the observation tower, watching the stars. She felt a strange mix of fear and awe for all her life. She had believed the stories, that humans were monsters, savages, destroyers. But now she saw something else. They were survivors, and survival was the purest form of strength. In the distance she could already see it, faint, like shadows in the night sky. A formation of dark shapes moving closer, slow and deliberate. She whispered to herself, they're here. Kale limped into the chamber, his armor dented, his pride shattered. He stared at the council members screaming and fighting among themselves. Silence, he roared, his voice echoing through the hall. They are coming, he said, and none of you can stop them. The chamber fell silent. Kyle walked slowly toward the grand window overlooking the city. In the blackness of space, the human fleet arrived, endless ships, silent and dark. No banners, no demands, no speeches, only inevitability. A faint transmission reached the Council's central network. This is Commander Rhea Morgan of Earth, it said. Calm and controlled, your fleets have fallen. Your borders are gone, your age has ended. Kyle stared at the message, his eyes wide, his throat dry. He finally understood what humanity had become. Not conquerors, not destroyers, but judgment. Rhea watched from the Vigilant as the fleet took position. Her face reflected the burning city lights of Zitharon Prime. Vega approached. Commander, their defenses are failing. They're surrendering, Rhea nodded, but her tone was firm. No, not yet, she said. They must understand why. She opened the transmission channel to the entire planet. Across every screen, every speaker, her voice echoed through the cities. You took our skies, she said, and burned them. You took our children and turned them into slaves. You buried our name under your empire, but you never killed our spirit. The skies above Zitharon glowed red as orbital strikes disabled every weapon grid, every defense platform. And then Rhea's final words rang out. "We don't seek your extinction," she said. "Only your end, the end of your pride." Kale fell to his knees, his eyes wet for the first time in his life. He felt small, powerless. The humans had not come to rule. They had come to remind the galaxy that every empire meets its reckoning. As the light of the burning capital filled the horizon, Rhea turned away from the view. "Stand down," she ordered quietly. "It's over." Her fleet began to pull back, the humans leaving behind only silence, only ruins. Kale watched the ships vanish into the stars, his voice breaking. "We were the gods," he whispered, "and they were the storm." The age of arrogance had fallen. The age of pride had burned away, and in its place, something new began to rise. The age of consequence. The fires over Zitharon Prime burned for 7 days and 7 nights. Where once stood the golden towers of the Galactic Council, now stood only ashes and silence. The sky, once bright with ships and trade routes, was filled with drifting debris, glowing faintly in the dying light. Admiral Kyle walked through the ruins of the council chamber, his armor cracked, his heart heavy. The great hall where he once commanded the galaxy was broken open to the stars, the roof torn away by the human strikes. He could see the endless void above, dark and quiet. For the first time, he felt the full weight of his failure. The empire he built had fallen not by numbers, but by will, humanity's will. He remembered their words, the last message that echoed across the stars. "This is not vengeance," the voice of Commander Rhea Morgan had said. "This is balance." Kale looked up at the stars and whispered softly, "Balance." Perhaps this is what we always feared. Far above the planet, the Vigilant and the Shadow Fleet orbited silently, their weapons powered down, their engines dim. The war was over, but the echoes of it lingered in every corner of the galaxy. Commander Rhea stood on the bridge, her uniform marked with the scars of battle, her expression calm yet filled with thought. "Status report," she said quietly. Lieutenant Vega replied. "All major council worlds are offline, communication hubs destroyed, slave colonies freed." He hesitated. "The Empire no longer exists." Rhea nodded slowly, her eyes distant. "The age of the council is over," she said. "But what comes next must be better." She turned to the hollow screen beside her, where hundreds of transmissions flooded in, messages from alien worlds. Species once enslaved, now cheering, crying, rebuilding. Humanity had not come to conquer them, but to free them, and yet, every act of freedom carried the shadow of what had been lost. In the council ruins, Lyra stood beside Kale, her hands trembling as she held a broken console. The screens flickered weakly, displaying faint human broadcasts of peace offers and rebuilding programs. "They're reaching out," she said softly. "They want to help rebuild what we destroyed." Kale laughed bitterly. "Help? From those we once enslaved?" Lyra looked at him, her voice calm. "Yes, because that is what makes them different." Kyle turned away, unable to respond, his pride gone, his arrogance shattered. He watched as human ships descended from orbit, not to destroy but to deliver aid, food and medicine. They treated their former enemies with care, not cruelty, and in that moment, Kale finally understood what true strength meant. It was not power, not fear, not domination. It was mercy. Meanwhile, on the Vigilant, Rhea recorded a message. It would be sent to every world, every system, every surviving species of the galaxy. Her voice was steady, her words chosen with care. "To all who remain," she said, "the Council's rule has ended. The chains are broken. The skies are yours again." She paused for a moment, her eyes lowering. "Humanity does not seek to rule. We seek to rebuild," she continued. "Together, we will make sure no empire ever rises on the suffering of others again." The message spread like light through the darkness. Across planets once enslaved, cities once silenced, species once forgotten, hope returned. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy breathed freely. Rhea stood by the viewport as the transmission ended. Vega approached her quietly. "You did it, Commander," he said. Rhea shook her head. "We did it," she replied, her tone soft. "But peace is never won. It must be guarded." She watched the surface of Zitharon below, where lights began to flicker. Survivors rebuilding, humans and aliens working side by side. The world that once symbolized arrogance now stood as a monument of unity. Later that night, Kyle walked through the rebuilding streets. The humans working beside his people without hatred. He stopped beside a young human engineer who smiled at him and handed him a piece of broken machinery. "Hold this," the man said simply. "Help me fix it." Kyle hesitated, then nodded slowly. As the two worked side by side under the dim starlight, Kyle felt something unfamiliar. Peace. Far above, the Vigilant prepared for departure. Rhea gave her final order. "Set course for Earth," she said. "It's time to go home." The Shadow Fleet turned slowly, their engines igniting one by one. For years they had been ghosts. Soldiers of vengeance, weapons of survival. Now, they were symbols of hope, of endurance, of what humanity truly was. As the fleet vanished into the stars, Vega stood beside Rhea. "Do you think they'll remember this day?" he asked. Rhea smiled faintly, her eyes on the stars. "Oh, they'll remember," she said, "because this is where the age of arrogance ended, and the age of humanity began." The stars burned bright once more. Free and alive, the Council's empire had fallen. But in its ashes rose something greater, a galaxy reborn, forged not by power, but by the unyielding spirit of humankind. And somewhere deep in the endless dark, the signal of defiance still echoed, not as a warning anymore, but as a promise.